All right, just want to let everybody know who is watching what's going on. There's that thing on the wheel on top of the tire. It was kind of coming off before. It broke off, but the tires are fine. Everything's fine. The car is fine, so I'm back on the road. That's just where I'm holding now. Baruch Hashem, Hodu LaHashem Ki Tov Ki L'Olam Chasdo. Give thanks to the Lord, for He is good. I just want to reiterate that I want to bring up, that the America to reach out more to the American Muslim community, because they are our natural allies. There is no reason why they should feel any fellowship with the atheist communists. I can understand why the extreme Islamists, the terrorists, would want to join together with them, not because they agree with them, but because of their common goals of destroying this country. And so they'll duke it out between them and their ideology of, once the country's destroyed, who's going to come out on top. But the average American Muslim who came to this country to seek religious freedom, who just wants to live their life, whose lifestyle is much more in common with the average Jew and Christian, really very similar to an Orthodox Jewish lifestyle. These should be our natural allies in our fight against the communist left. We have so many common values, family values in particular. We should be united in this effort. And there's really no reason that we're not. And I've seen that there is a little bit of an effort to do this, but it should be as expanded as much as we can. And one thing is that we should try to be involved with interfaith work if we can, if it's feasible, because so much of that interfaith work tends to be embraced more by the left, and it's an Eis Asos Lashem is how I feel about it, meaning Amolas Gevain, in the old days, it had to be a liberal thing to do the interfaith work, because we were too religious to do that, right? We can't. It doesn't fit in with our ideology, as Orthodox Jews, for example. But today, I think a lot of that's changed. Personally, the more Haredi poskim really didn't address this question. Like, it wasn't on the radar of Satmarov, let's say, that much, this type of interfaith dialogue. A little bit. And the thing was, he was very wise about a lot of these things. There's stories that point to that it was somewhat on his radar for political purposes and so forth. But in general, these weren't the types of questions that were asked. But I know, like, they would ask Rav Soloveitchik what his opinion was, and he said something along the lines that, if we're discussing, and that's really what we're discussing here, that Muslims should be excluded from this, that we are seeing, particularly among the modern Orthodox, a lot of it has to do with Zionism, and so for a lot of Christians has to do with eschatology. These opening up of dialogues between Orthodox Jews and Christians, but the truth is, and to a certain extent some of the more liberal parts of the Haredi world have been engaging in this more, and particularly mostly with Christians. And then you have, some aspects of working together with Muslims, but it has to be, we should try to have a united front against the communists, against the atheists, against the left. And we have to get together for this. It's so important right now, because first of all, the Muslim community is growing in America. It's not going away. There's nothing, for those who, and not only that, but we should also embrace certain aspects of what we can learn politically. I mean, I mentioned this issue. There were certain Christians who were upset that during Ramadan, why were they allowing Islamic prayer in public schools during, break times during Ramadan? And my feeling is, instead of complaining about it, do the same thing for your Christian groups. And you can't claim that you're not allowed to, because no, if the Muslims can do it, the Christians can do it, and the Jews can do it. I mean, there's no reason not to, except the fact is, really, and this is what it really comes down to, is that by and large, a lot of Muslims, even if they're not the most religious, they take their religion a lot more seriously than a lot of Jews and Christians do. Meaning, how many Jews are praying 3 times a day outside of the Orthodox world? Meaning it's still in the siddur of the Reform and the Conservative Jew to pray 3 times a day. And you want to say you want a abbreviated prayer or whatever. In the Reform movement, it's almost unheard of unless you're talking about a Shiva house or something. And in the conservative world, it's certain old people. If you have a big conservative synagogue that, will maybe have 2,000 people on the high holidays, and maybe have 500-600 people on a regular Shabbos. If they have a minyan, which includes both men and women, on a weekday, meaning 10, between 10 men and between 6 men and 4 women, something like that, right? That's what they can expect on a weekday in a really big conservative shul, and so how many people, how many kids who go to that conservative temple are going to be every Shabbat, let's say, they had their bar mitzvah there, and like the rabbi was successful enough to get them to start coming every Shabbat, and their family, and they started to like it. How many of those people are putting on tefillin every day and praying 3 times a day? So it's not a question so much, so I wear a shtreimel too, but I send my kids to the soccer schools. So that's the thing. I'm not talking about, the real Hamish. But the truth is, a lot of the Muslims also are not that. Every Satmar Chassid I know prays 3 times a day, and most of them are praying with a minyan every day. They're better than I am, because I don't really go to minyan every day, but I daven, and the Maizeda went to minyan every day. It was modern Orthodox. And I don't know if the average Muslim prays 5 times a day, but during Ramadan they do this and that. There's certain things, and it is a lot of the same cultural ideas. But the point what I'm saying here is that we should try to find some form of unity politically to get these common political goals. Religious, the left is trying to my Zetas were up on him in Krula and Chenga, and going to places in Hungary and further back in other parts of Europe. But so often, because of the particular parochial interests that benefit the community in the short run, they will lose out on looking at the big picture in the long run. As we see now, they put all their backing into this de Blasio guy. And de Blasio, I know, really loves the Hasidim. But he is so bad for America, and those things that are and bad for New York City, and those things that are bad for America and bad for New York City are what's bad for the Hasidim, the Chiyuv. And they have to learn, really, that the Republicans is. It's the same thing like Donald Trump in the old days always supported I'm not talking about marching with Arabs. I'm not talking about Neturei Karta. That's not what I'm talking about here. Because the truth is, the average Muslim in America is not that radical either. That's the other issue. We have this vision that we're just, and that everything comes down to this question of Zionism, whether it's with the Christians and their eschatology, or whether it's with the Muslims with the extreme anti-Zionism. And I'm an anti-Zionist, but that extreme, the Neturei Karta, they're not really Satmar. I mean, Moshe Berbeck really was a Vishnitzer. He's not a Vishnitzer now, of course, but his background had nothing from Satmar. And who else? All those other guys. Some of them have some connection to the B'nai Yol, but those elements. But what I'm talking about is the average, normal, workaday Muslim, the type of people I'm going now to perform a wedding for in Connecticut, that are really just like us. And I'm not saying we got to hang out with them, be friends with them, this and that. What I'm saying is that we have to try to develop a coalition to fight against the threat of the extreme left that wants to take away religious freedom, that wants to destroy issues of family values. Most of those battles have already been lost, and there's so much that the Frum community didn't care about these issues, and you were seen as an extremist if you did care. People make fun of Rabbi Yehuda Levin because he cares about these issues, and to a certain extent he's right. And how many people say, that's none of our business? It's not true, because it creeps into our community as well. We know that to be the case. And the thing is that it creeps in often to the point where people get destroyed from the inside. We've seen it. We've seen it in our community, and how those people who then leave our community fall into these traps then wind up being these extreme communists. They're card-carrying democratic socialists following Bernie Sanders. This is not good. This is not good, people. It's not just, and they become somewhat quasi-celebrities. You know who I'm talking about. That they've fallen into these issues of the left's nonsense when it comes to these issues of family values issues. So these are the things that we really have to speak out about, because there is a balance. That no, we're not monolithic. I think that's another issue. There was a picture that people put up from somewhere in California that the Jews want a race war and this and that. The answer that we have to give to that, I know it's not popular. I know people are going to be mad at me for saying this, but it's the answer that Rabbi Daniel Lapin gives. And I know, again, a lot of people don't like him either. And like Rabbi Levin, they're both students of Hagen Tzadik Moreno, Rabbi Victor Miller's Chosiyah Galenu, who, again, I know certain people don't like him, but I think he was Mamish Tzadik Hador. I remember meeting him, I have his autograph. I really have the utmost respect for Victor Miller. It doesn't mean everything he said is the gospel truth, but what I'm saying is that he was a major gadol, and he had a clear hashkafa. We're already in Waterbury, so I better check my GPS. And these are the things that we, the same way that both Rabbi Levin and Rabbi Lapin have this outreach to Christians, and they work together with Christians. Together with those same Christians, we should be united with the Muslims, and let's put aside for now all the eschatology issues, the Zionist issues and things. Again, of course Jews have been leftists before World War II, but again, these were the people who left Judaism. How many of those people stayed frum? And a lot of that issue historically can be traced to Shabtai Tzvi and to Jacob Frank. I know it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but there are connections to that. So